Hello, everyone. It's Andrew Hughes and Alex, and we are here to talk today to you guys about tips and tricks in unlocking the potential of e-learning. First off, thank you to everyone that's joined us. It looks like we got a pretty good crowd from all over the world today. If you could take a minute and just say hello in the chat and tell us where you're from and what you do. You know, as long as you're not working for undercover ops or the CIA and you can tell us who you're working for, then rock and roll on that. I wanted to start this presentation, and every month what I'm attempting to do is bring in people that I see that have made major impacts on the industry, have helped guide us in the industry, help clarify data and information, because as Alex and I have had many conversations, marketing in our industry loves to throw out buzzwords and loves to work in the gray area. And and Alex and I like to just burst those bubbles and try to clarify as much as possible so we can get through the marketing crap and actually provide business value to customers. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Alex. And Alex, if you would like, kind of tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing now, and then we'll start to jump into your backstory.
Sounds great. So my name is Alex Salas. I am a e-learning developer, instructional designer, and really a total geek. And that's how I got to meet Andrew anyway. I'm the owner of StarLearn. I'm a consultant in e-learning, and I help many companies, create their e-learning solutions. But also lately, I'm helping folks, I mentor folks that want to transition into e-learning, because there's a lot of folks now that do that. So it's been an interesting ride, and 2020 is going to look beautiful.
Hey, congrats. And you're a CPLP. You
Yes.
have your certification. And I know that you work heavily with ATD. You were the chapter president in Florida. And I want you to tell us a little bit about that. And I know there's some people in the room, because they're friends of mine, that have their CPLP. But some people don't even know what that is. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So you brought up the boring stuff, what I call the boring stuff. But I'll go ahead and spill it out. So technically speaking, I'm a CompTIA A+ certified, so it's a computer geek type of thing. I'm a certified technical trainer for CompTIA, and then that led to me looking into the certified professional in learning and performance, which is ATD's highest certification. It involves taking a practical test and a knowledge test, or backwards. And then there's also another certification now that goes there. But as you mentioned, here I live in Orlando, Florida, and I'm the current president for 2020 of the ATD, or the Association for Talent Development Central Florida chapter. And, we're doing some pretty cool stuff out there. You probably have seen, because I sort of digitized the whole thing and, created more of a digital chapter in a way. So we got people that join us from all over the world, or all over the country, really, not just Central Florida. I also run the only e-learning group in Orlando. It's called Articulators. Yeah, we meet every month, and we get dangerous with all Articulate products, but mainly Storyline and Res. So I usually say it's like people go, "What do you do for fun?" They're like, "This."
This. Well,
yeah. So
that for me is one of the reasons why, when I was looking around and saying, who would be somebody that would be very beneficial to our industry to talk to, looking at what you're doing and the passion that you have, man. What I've learned from people is you can train people on anything, but you can't train drive and you can't train passion. Those are two things that are impossible to train. And I have found that when I find somebody in the industry like that, I will always gravitate towards them, because I know that they're going to be looking at the greater good, obviously while building a business and being successful. But overall, the people that are not just looking for short-term gains, but are actually looking to improve our industry, always I look at them saying, yes, thank you for being on the team that is just trying to help our world.
And so I want to thank you, because obviously that none of this happens without the interaction and collaboration we have. And since I met you immediately, we kind of clicked because I knew what your team was doing, and we were talking 4 or 5 years ago, and and it was awesome then. So it hasn't changed. It's still amazing stuff. And
Oh, thanks, man.
and you're doing a lot of things that are inspiring as well. But
Well,
we need to get you off the cuff. So
I know, yeah.
year.
Yeah, sincerely, for everybody that doesn't know, Alex has his own podcast called Off the Cuff, and it's actually really awesome. And I owe him because the day that we were going to record mine, I was throwing up violently from the flu, and I had to cancel on him. So I'm a jerk, and I apologize, but you didn't want me puking all over you. If it made you feel any better, I had a video proof. So if you want that, buddy, I can send it to you.
Well, we could play on words. It's education.
No, the reason why I have video proof is my wife, because I was crying like a little baby for throwing up. My wife thought it was hilarious, so she was like, look at you. I'm like, make it stop.
That's always the case. It's like, the same happens with my wife. If I get a cold, I'm like, oh, it really hurts. I go, shut up.
Yeah. Of course, she's like, I've birthed babies. Stop it. And I'm like, you're right. You do win. You do win. There's no way I couldn't even do that. Hats off to you, ladies. I'm a wuss. Could not do that. So, Alex, tell me a little bit about, like, how did you, being the chapter president of ATD, having your business, running the Articulate group that you have, and articulators. I didn't mean to butcher it for you there, buddy. How did you end up in this industry? Like, I guess I always ask people, like, what did you want to be when you grew up, and how did you kind of land in this industry?
Man, so it's I truly believe that there are things, if you're paying attention to your life, and if you're paying attention to the events. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we do in learning is pretty much reflection, right? So, like, we go through things, and then our mind kind of processes, and then you're like, oh, and then you kind of get that. But primarily, I'm a Navy veteran. I was in the Navy. I served 6 years, and I was attached to Marine Corps unit. So it's what was called a hospital corpsman. So I was a medic, but don't call a corpsman a medic, because those are fighting words. So
see, I learned something new every day. Had no idea.
And Navy football just beat Army, so yay! No,
I saw that.
So, but yeah, so at that time in the Navy, interesting enough, right? I mean, just if you look at the path of life, I was a recipient, and I was an actual recipient and a participant in instructional systems design. The Navy uses ADDIE to its fullest, the way it was actually meant to be done. And so I didn't know it at the time. I mean, a clue, right? I mean, no clue. But as I was in the service, there's two ways you promote. There's two things you need to promote. One is you have to get your evaluation, obviously, like, the politics. That's what I call it, right? So don't piss off your supervisor or, or your manager, and have a good relationship and all that. Great. And the second piece is you have to take a test. You have to take an advancement test. So it's a cognitive thing, right? So I've always been pretty good at tests. I've always been pretty good at kind of devising my own study techniques and whatnot. Because I was good at it, then I sort of had the inclination of helping. Once I made a, let's say, sergeant level or HM2 rank, I had the inclination to help other folks that were, say, my subordinates, or that were in my team. So they can promote, and because that was the problems they were having. So I did that, and I started doing that and got real success out of it. But I got like everybody else that gets started in this business, I think I got that reward, the reward of the realization that you are helping somebody better their life. So after that, I saw a chief doing a class. He was retired, but he was just going around teaching people, smoking cessation and stuff like that. He was a health educator. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, that seems like a great gig. I was looking for an easy job. I'm not gonna lie. So I was like, man, that seems like a great gig. Yeah, we just walk around and do classes. So naive that I was. But I started pursuing an education. So I started pursuing education. I hit health education, and there was one class on adult learning theory. And man, when I hit that, I was like, I found out about other things. And then I found out that there were professions that you didn't have to be a teacher, and every company had a trainer. So that really changed my life. Fast forward 2013, I've been doing software training. I've been doing all kinds of things. I got really geeky at first with Captivate, let's say. Always had that interest saying, well, this face-to-face stuff is great, but it's limited in a way.
Yep. Yep.
How can I, make things that last longer? How can I, reach people across a spectrum, a geographical spectrum? How can I do all that? Well, I can't really do it with a face-to-face scenario. I need to be able to do this online. Online is the future, is what I was thinking always, So I got that. And then for whatever reason, based on the little techie skills that I got this big job where I was a director of systems and training at a company, and I got to move to St. Louis. Well, 6 months later, I got laid off.
Oh,
so until that point, I didn't exist on LinkedIn. And until that point, I didn't have, a digital presence, and I wasn't involved with conferences or anything like that. So that's where it really started. And then when I learned about DeafLearn, I learned about the conferences, LSCon, which happens here in Orlando, all that.
Yeah.
I was in. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So it was actually my first job as an instructional designer too. So yeah. Official job, let's say, because when you're a trainer, you're always doing that. So you're always making your own stuff. But I think, I'm not gonna lie, I was a PowerPoint assassin in my minutes. Yeah.
The thing is about the PowerPoint assassins, and here's what I hear people say that about the PowerPoint assassins, but what I think lacks credit about the PowerPoint assassins is that a PowerPoint assassin is taking content material that could go in any direction and has to align that material in a way that can be presented and compartmentalized for people to actually absorb that data in a way that is interactive too. And so, in my opinion, I think while people are like, oh, I hate PowerPoint, I think, in my own opinion, if we didn't have something that did force us to have that linear path for so long, I think we would have a lot more complexity when it comes to how to align curriculum and I think we would have a lot more issues in just education in general if we didn't have that, hey, let's try to break this down to a linear fashion, and let's actually try to break this down to what's the least common denominator and build it up from there. Right. And I don't think human beings would have been able to do that without something that did that. So while I hear that a lot about death by PowerPoint or, oh, linear sucks, I personally have to say it gave you constraints to be able to outline content material. And it's, in my opinion, still very beneficial when it comes to doing instructional design and actually doing curriculum map layouts, things like that.
Right. So the one thing to think about is, we have cognitive schemas, right? We all have our little computer with our replication of the world inside of us, right? Like what we know about things. So if I ask people here, what is eLearning? We'll get 20 different answers, possibly,
Yep.
So, and the way that you and I look at eLearning is also very different to a lot of people. And that's why we're having this conversation. Like there's more potential to eLearning than just doing a PowerPoint and a quiz at the end, So there's it's like there's conversations about that all the time. It's like people blame the tool. Well, it's not really the tool.
All the time. No.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, in PowerPoint, you can do more things that you can do in Storyline, except, when you try to get into quizzing or, interactivity. But you can pretty much all the presentation, all the graphic design, all the visual presentation, animations, and all of that is possible within PowerPoint. And if you're interested enough, if you're dangerous enough, if you want to be dangerous enough, you could actually do a PowerPoint, find some kind of scorn wrapper and throw in some JavaScript quiz in the end, and you have a module. You don't even have to need the learning authoring tool. So, it's, yeah. I mean, so, it's just a tool. And, you can have a piano. If you don't know how to play it, you immediately know, right? This person sucks. So,
isn't that the truth?
Yeah, isn't that the truth? We're not going to be like, oh, you weren't using a Steinway,
Yeah.
It's not a Steinway piano. That's why, So
I get so many people that come to us and say, oh, what gaming engine would you build this type of game in? And I'm like, whoa, time out. We're not going to start with theme, and we're not going to start with the application that we're going to use to build this. We're going to start with what is the business problem, the initiative, or the reason behind this. You know that. And actually, the sound instructional design every single time has made or broken a project. Technology can be evolved or changed. You can build it in each one of these platforms. And what I've seen between you and I, and you're right, with PowerPoint, you can do amazing things in PowerPoint. And what I found is you can do amazing things in Storyline. You Captivate, iSpring, Lectora, Domino, it goes on and on and on. Adapt framework, Gomo,
Evolve.
and Evolve, and right, keep going, and I tell you guys that, and I tell you that because we're not knocking those software products. Those are amazing software products, each one of them, and I know Alex, and I know even some of the original founders of quite a few of those software products, and I can tell you they're great people, and they're doing the same. They have the same thought process that we do. Let's make this better than what is happening right now. But Alex does have a good point. It's the solid structure, because what I often see is that whole let's talk about what software product and let's talk about the technology. Or the biggest thing I see the most in our industry right now that could improve is I always see we're talking about this project we're building rather than fundamentally talking about the business problem and the external benchmarks compared to the internal benchmarks. It's almost like this gray, scary, creepy, hollow-ish area in our industry that everybody's like, oh, stay away from that. And I think it's because we're so reactionary. We have to be, though. What happens is there's what I've found, and Alex, you can piggyback on this. I found there's usually 3 to 4 reasons that organizations are training. The first one is compliance, check off insurance policies. The second one is we have a initiative for the following year, and we need to make sure that we have all staff up to date on that information. Or we have a major problem and a pain point, and we need to solve that pain point with a solution. And 9 times out of 10, it's reactionary because it's something they identify and then they're turning around and training on it. So when it comes to the technology, what I often see is internally, usually since it's so reactionary, they need it really quick. So PowerPoint in that linear side, if you have somebody that is really strong in the instructional design side, the technology can come with it. But truthfully, I see even the PowerPoint side, if it can be laid out very well, it will end up doing what we need it to do, which is to educate, engage, and entertain those learners. And I don't necessarily think you need a gaming engine ever for that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a recent study. Well, so much social. It was recent. It was last year, I think, where they did an analysis. I think it was in clinical education, and they had a VR scenario set up, a whole full VR 360, the whole jazz, and a PowerPoint. And they found out the PowerPoint was more effective than them thing. So, and primarily because, the learning curve, the adaptation of the learner to the new environment, the immersion, the nausea, the issues, I love VR. I own an Oculus Rift. I think it has its applications in different areas and it works out. But the main thing to understand from anyone really, if you're designing or you're just receiving things, e-learning is just a delivery method. It's a methodology of delivery. It's not it's not a learning theory. It's not a, scientific, principle of if you do learning, it's going to be better than anything else. Or if you do this, it's going to be better than anything else. The one thing that you can know is that e-learning does have more reach than it's a broadcasting mechanism, right? So, and it's also a mechanism that allows you to track more efficiently what you're doing. So in order to, the problem that we're having is, though, we as humans tend to replicate what we know, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That, right? Like I said, we have a cognitive schema. We all arrive here with a specific set of beliefs, with a specific set of things. There's probably people here that may believe in learning styles, And at one point we talked about learning styles being one thing. Maybe the persona conversation is now turning into a learning, a segue out of learning styles. Regardless of the issue, we all came here at a certain point in our career, in our knowledge, and everything else. E-learning is just a delivery method. So if we're going to think, well, we're going to do things, we're going to do a course. A course is going to be a solution. Well, course could be a part of the solution, but it can't be the solution, especially in an organization, right? In an organization setting, because if you think about it, the user is usually sandwiched between two areas. So they're sandwiched between the LMS and then their work environment. Yeah. And what happens is when you go to the LMS and let's say you made this beautiful course. Oh man, it looks amazing. Graphic design, interactions, all that jazz. Great. I had a great experience. I love this. Man, it was relevant, right? It was relevant and addressed the issues that I needed to know, things I didn't know. I figured, it confirmed the things that I knew. It gave me more. Great. I left the LMS. Now I'm in the workplace. It doesn't address,
the performance.
The performance, right? So if I have a problem that is performance-based and I'm not one of those people, I'm someone that needs an answer quick, right, to solve the problem, because then that means either money or production or everything else. I'm not talking about the person just sitting at their desk and that's all they do all day. That's a whole different game. If you actually happen to be helping a customer, if you happen to be, addressing a database or addressing something that will impact per minute, will count thousands of dollars against the enterprise, you can't hope to just solve things with a course.
You're right.
Because I'm not going to go back to your course, first of all, because most LMSs, I haven't seen yet an LMS that shows me some Google-able capabilities of searching and semantics and all that. And the second piece is, even if I did that, if your course is more than 10 minutes, then I can't search within your course. I'm not going to be able to track that thing. It's just not going to work. So I need something that, back in the day, they call HPT, right? Human Performance Technology, and they call performance support. And today you may know it as learning in the workflow, or whatever that is.
Well, yeah, so, exactly.
That is your marketing brand today, learning in the workflow learning. So that's great. You can call it that as long as you know what it's supposed to do. That's the important thing. What we call it today doesn't really matter. Learning experience design, I do see the value of learning experience design being that it is the integration of the UX principles and graphic design added if you have a systemic view of things. But just to say that it's learning experience design, well, instructional systems design was doing a system which involves the persona and the experience in that system, right? So it's not just the course. Right. It's what happens after the course. So it's an interesting thing to be aware of those things and to get a little more acquainted with that, because then you can think of learning as a conversation with that person, rather than just a container. It's like almost like you're at the bank and they send you the check and the vacuum bag. Boom, thank you. Here you go. And then sometimes you get a form and it's the deposit form, but you don't know that it's the deposit form. So you got to stop and read and know what's up. But obviously you have the helpful person right there, right, telling you, hey, please fill out the deposit form, right? So now it's a deposit. Okay, good. And if you've done it over 10 times, now you know, right? So that's the whole example there. But if you're completely brand new, if I put my 70-year-old son in that scenario, he's going to be confused as hell. So he's going to have that performance support, that person there going, oh, yeah, this is what you got to do. So in e-learning, nothing is stopping you from being able to provide that experience. Being able to say in the beginning, slow down and consider that it is a conversation. Consider that it is, hey, you're doing this because of A, B, and C. But as you mentioned before, we have a problem. The problem is, I always think we address two things in the organization, right? We address cognitivism and we address behaviorism. You can teach me all you want about things, but if I have a bad habit, that's not going to help me break the habit, right? It's like if I'm, I'm 350 pounds and I need to lose 50 pounds. well, you're going to give me a course on nutrition and exercise. Great. I took the course. I aced the quiz. See me 6 months
Boom.
later, I'm
Yep.
400 pounds.
Yep.
Why? Because I haven't stopped eating freaking pizza and chicken wings and cinnamons, and I don't really work out. So
And
I know all about it, so yeah.
And you're right, to piggyback on that. Sorry, but I want to say this: you were given the information, but since you didn't actually have to utilize it and experience it. You didn't actually use those tools or use those pieces. And what I see is we have a fundamental thought process here. If it's compliance training or checking off insurance, we get it. That one in piece, like you're talking about, works. But we don't make rocks. This planet doesn't make rocks, and this world doesn't make rocks from just a one-time hit it. That's how you make glass. To make a rock, it's over a lot of time and a lot of pressure. And the same thing with athletes. Athletes don't get good. You and I, Alex, you and I can go run a mile right now. Neither of us will call each other a marathon runner. And so, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm bigger than you, buddy. So what I mean is that there has to be spread out time. And that you're right. I've heard spaced learning now, scalable learning. I've heard human performance support, and that's ironic because I'm in the middle of reading performance consulting field books as we speak, because I am very big on this. If you actually want to make an impact in this world, we have to look at this over a long period of time and actually look at how we can deliver this stuff to them, to remind them about this. I think of it as like rudimentary. If any of you have ever dealt with a teenager and had to tell them to do something, it's 7 times before it's done, right? Over a period of time, to the point where you continue to repeat yourself. And by the time that you're about to burst, my friend, you've repeated it 27 times within 2 minutes.
It's a very beautiful example you bring over, because I live it every day. I have 3 kids. My oldest is about to turn 17, and and what you're saying is true. But I also think about that in a way of organizational development and learning, right? So if you think about it, there's not much you can draw parallels when you think, well, the house is a corporation. I'm the interested stakeholder, and he's a worker, and I'm asking him to empty the dishwasher, right? Yeah. Well, that's not really an interest that he has,
right?
So as you say, that's going to take 7 times. But if I ask them to go check out the new website because there's a surfing competition coming up next weekend, he's doing it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you tap in people's interests, then you already have their attention and you have their interests, right? So if you can get that up front, then you'll be great. The problem here in many areas is that we're applying an academic model. And academics don't do anything for workplace learning.
Between you and I, being somebody that has ADD, I went to grade K through 12 at a public school. By the time I get to high school, I went to college, and I was a C student through grade school. I was an A student in college, and the reason why I tell you that is because what up, Jonathan? Is because I consider it to be academic bulimia. Sit down, shut up, shove that information into it, spit it back out in an exam so we can check off a box and say you're okay and move forward. And guess what? We're going to do that again Monday. So go erase your brains because we're starting all over. And
what Craig said, yeah. Glad that the kids are getting prepared for the reward time. Well, really, I mean, is that sense, right? Because think about the experience of what people are going through. I have my kid come every, probably, I don't know, every other day. He's like, I'm doing some boring stuff. I don't even know why I'm doing this. Well, and then sometimes I hear things, well, my teachers just put some video on and, did something. Well, obviously, there are teachers that are amazing. There are teachers that this, but teachers are also working against a ton of lack of efficiency is what I see.
Yeah.
Right? So teachers in high school and below, they don't have efficiency. They're not working with digital platforms. They're not working with technology to evaluate things. They're still doing things manually in many areas. They spend 30 plus hours over their 40 hours doing that. And so, you have challenges there. The main thing in our end is, and especially with e-learning, is that, look, it doesn't have to be there's no problem being linear if you have a storyline with it. If you have I'm not saying the software, just the story.
No, a creative story throughout.
But you have a beginning, a middle, and the end, and also that you are targeting to the specific need of what it is. You mentioned the business needs. Yes, that's one thing. Then you have to get also the individual's needs, right? So there's more. Sometimes people explain ADDIE as a very, very, very high overview, 30,000-foot view of things. Like, oh no, yeah, you just analyze what the business need is, and then you move on. You move on, and you don't move on. You have to know what the business need is. You want to know what the environment is. You want to know where the people are. You want to know, this whole conversation. The personas is a new thing. Personas is not a new thing. It's a thing
not at all.
Design thinking, but the analysis of the needs of the audience, and that's documented since the 50s and has been thoroughly documented. Now, I understand that there could be a challenge doing that in business, because if a lot of people end up in this job, right? They end up in the job, they're not getting there. So we have a bigger problem today when it comes even to e-learning, because we have people that we're helping a lot of people here in Florida, in Orlando with this. They're going to get a master's degree in instructional design. And, that's amazing if you want to be in a federal contracting type of business. Why? Because who's the client? The client is the Navy, the Army. The military services. What do they use? They use ISD all the way
ISD all through.
The full expression of it. So, and there's no going around that, because they have it documented. You can actually go online. Any of you guys, you can go online and just search it. Army training manual, Navy training manual. You will see it there displayed. So, in business, now we have a whole different conversation. And in e-learning, again, it's just a delivery methodology. So, e-learning is how you're going to provide that experience, and in a way that you can provide it across the globe and everything else. But if your essence, your design, and your analysis and all that is not good, then it doesn't really matter what you're doing in learning. It's just going to be the same outcome. So, I'm getting off the box.
To even talk a little bit more about that, what I think is quite interesting is, and this has happened over the last couple of years, that everybody's jumped on the bandwagon of Agile, because you can take a drink of water. Okay. They're going to end up making this an audio podcast anyway. So let's just see if you can drink and talk at the same time. So I lose my train of thought because of my ADD like crazy. But here, because my brain runs too fast. Oh, so here's what I think is interesting. We went down this big path of like Agile, and it became a huge buzzword. And one of the things that I often see is, that's great. We can Agile, each within side of the phases of ADDIE, but you still need to figure out exactly what you're landscaping, determine on those benchmarks, determine on that material, like you're stating, and then build a solid foundation of what you're going to actually develop before you go into sprinting that. Does that make sense? People underestimate what the sprints actually are.
Yeah. So I became a certified Scrum Master recently. And I did that because of, I did the research before when everybody was talking Agile like 2 years ago. And I mean, it's okay. I mean, the only thing I see in L&D right now is that, and I don't even think, I'm starting to realize that this is not an L&D issue. This is a business issue. Business people are doing this, and then L&D is just copying, or what they call it, modeling, right? Like kids model to the parents.
That's exactly what I see.
L&D is just modeling to what the business is doing. So the business is like, oh, we got to be agile. We got to do this. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, we got to meet. We got to meet like more often and not wait to the end until it's too late. So okay, that's one part of it, but. That's a very small part of it,
Tiny amount.
So it's a very tiny amount of it. So if we're just going to take the iteration and say, okay, we're agile. No, you're not. You're agile, but right. What they call it in the industry. So the guys that do agile call that agile, but it's kind of like saying we're agile, but we don't do it this way, we do it this way.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize that to do Agile, when you do instructional design or e-learning, for example, let's take e-learning. In most situations, companies do e-learning and they have maybe one developer do a course, right? I'm talking like, you're working for a company, not in a team like yours, right? But they have one person doing the course, meaning one person working the storyline, one person pretty much doing everything, bringing the audio, the video, doing the whole thing, right? That's not going to work in Agile, right?
Not
In
at all.
Agile, you're going to need to have at least 4 different developers working on the same on the same project, right? So you're going to have to working on the same project. You're going to have a product log, and depends on what framework you're going to follow, because you and I are talking Scrum, but
that
doesn't mean you can do Lean or it can do
right. Your Six Sigma, you can't. Right. No, you're dead on. And to piggyback on what you're stating too, one of the things that I often see is, like you're stating, people will turn around and say, well, we're Agile, so we'll start to drill down, because the interesting thing is our team has actual software developers that came from software development that are used to that. So they mock it the whole time, because they're like, this isn't Agile. All this is another round of revisions. This isn't Agile. This is just a sprint for revisions. All that we've done is given the client X amount of more revisions, because what it is they want to meet more often, which we already are doing that. That's not a big deal. But basically what it is they want to be able to provide more feedback throughout the process.
Right.
That's what they're really asking for. And for some reason, we've jumped on this Agile thing. But from a business standpoint, I see Sam wrote, and sorry, Sam, I will butcher this when you're saying this. He's looked at it for years, but he's not seen it work very well in L&D. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of times, because this business model is either a per project effort, and a lot of people don't like variable costs unless it's going directly to making them direct money. And organizations still do not value knowledge transfer as much as they should. And so if they'll Agile sprint the software product they make, because they can directly apply that to the numbers. If they Agile with a company like us over and over and over, they're going to just get nailed on those revisions over and over and over. And the problem is L&D wants to have a hard numbers and a per project price, and I can tell you, the people that have done that, more power to you if it's worked for you, but I can about guarantee you your clients are going to slowly start going other places, because then they realize how many iteration sprints and what they're actually getting, that it's actually costing them, and then they start to ask, why don't we just do this in-house, where I have more control? I can hire somebody for $30,000 and maybe they could do 3 or 4 of them, 5, 10, 20 of them, then instead of looking at it that way.
Well, one of the main things, right, in Agile, specifically in Scrum, is you have to have a definition of what done is, right? So done.
Yes.
DONE. So there's no going back and changing anything. And if there is, the team has to agree, and there's going to be money involved, right? There's going to be, and there's going to be a product owner, and you're going to have a product backlog, and you're going to have your freaking Scrum session, your first Scrum session, which is a 4-hour thing, and a usual basis. Right? You need a team at least of 8 people or 9 people. I mean, I've never seen. I worked 12 years already. I'm about to leave Dell. I've been working for Dell. I've never seen any team in any company do anything like this. It's always been, well, for the most part, I've always been sort of like the top developer in a sense, but again, it has been just a very project, one person thing. So there's no, hey Jonathan, the llama approach. Well, the llama approach, the llama approach is just, I have a off the cuff episode with that, but it's really, again, that's just adapting something. It doesn't make it Agile because we say it is. It looks a lot like it. Well, why? Because we're iterating. If you look at Sam, you can call Sam Scrum, because it's sort of, if you, except for the fact that maybe there's not a lot of mention about product logs or anything like that. Sam looks very Scrummy, so maybe we need to make a new one, you and I, Scrummy Learning.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I love you dearly. And first off, Megan's team up there at Torrance Learn does a great job. Love those guys. If anything, Megan and I have a lot of the same viewpoints. Our teams love to collaborate. They have some pretty good stuff. But it comes back to, even with that and the Sam, that they still end up in those different pockets. If you look at the SAM process right now, it's pocketing inside and doing iterations within the ADDIE process. Like it's pocketing that and making those iterations sound like they're different, but they're just scrummy looking herder. There you go. There, scrummy.
That's the end, by the way. You can't use that. It's
he already trademarked it. So we have about 20 minutes, and I saw Susan made a really good comment, and this is very, very, very true. It's better to have it done right than to hurry up. And there are times where we'll turn around and we'll get a potential client that says we need this done by X date, and despite the fact that we're a small company, and despite the fact that we want to work and we want to grow, we will turn them away because it just sets you up for, even if you try to Agile sprint it and you put everybody on overtime, you're going to end up in a bad situation. So we quite often would rather do it right, because it's going to be, as you know, a direct reflection on you, not just them at their job, but if it comes down to it being ugly, it's going to be pushed off to you, the vendor. So
and also, in everything pretty much that we do, context is the key thing, right? I mean, that's why we can never have a conversation on LinkedIn about this, because everybody talks in general. There's no context. Nobody ever comes with a specific problem, with a specific setup, and say, okay, now this is what we're gonna do. No, it's so context is the biggest thing. So it's right. Yeah, you're saying better to get it done right than right now. Problem is, we are addressing the business need, so we have to be in context with that as well. So if the business need is, hey, we're bleeding money.
Yeah.
And you're saying, well, to do it right, it's going to take us 90 days. Well, no, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to find solutions that are not going to be that right solution, but you're going to find something that's going to stop the bleeding.
A bandage.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And then consider that, okay, now we're going to do, we're going to work on this. But yeah, it's all context. I mean, if you're addressing, lack of knowledge and awareness and that type of stuff, sure, go ahead and do that. But I find something funny all the time about eLearning, right? Most people have this formula. They give you a title, they give you learning objectives, then lesson, knowledge check, lesson, knowledge check, then 10-question quiz, right?
Nailed it.
So here's a question. Why am I watching 1 hour content when I'm only answering 10 questions?
Yeah.
Should we just address the 10 questions? Because the 10 questions should be addressing the issues, should be addressing the business need, not learning all this stuff about whatever. 10-question quiz could answer without watching the content. Yeah. And so, that's what happens, right, Craig? So what happens? People, I mean, we're humans, we're adults. We have to, our autonomy is often not respected when you take an academic model. The academic model is basically saying, I'm the authority. I have all the knowledge. You need to listen. You need to do it how I'm telling you do it, right? Well, the autonomy is going to challenge all that, because you're going to say, as an adult, that's the main difference between us and students, right? Or at least students in specific contexts, saying kids. We have experiences. We already worked. We have done a bunch of stuff. So we're going to challenge it. No, that's BS. I know that's not how it works. That type of stuff. So primarily, as you say, I could answer without watching the content. Most people are going to, the compliance issue has created a problem for us. And it's a behavioral problem, right? Which is, okay, I know that all I need to do is get 80% on this quiz. So let me just jump right to that.
And then administrations turn around going, we just need to make sure that these people check it off. So when we do have a violation, we can put it back on them. And right. I love it dearly, but that's how it goes. And so what we try to do is what you're saying. I look at compliance training and performance training is completely different types of training and approaches.
Yeah. And, you're addressing that, and you're addressing, again, is about more of what you're doing in eLearning is a component of it. And if you do it right, you can actually generate some great memorable experiences. As a matter of fact, without intending, without the intention, a lot of people are creating memorable experiences, but they're negative, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this crap.
This sucks.
Locked. I gotta go.
You have no idea. Okay, so we have we just have. And how many times has this happened to you, where you have friends that are not in this industry? and you're like, oh yeah, I work on e-learning, and they're like, oh, I just took this at work and it
Uh-huh.
was horrible.
Yeah.
I cannot even express to you the percentage, but I know it's over 98 to 99% of the people. And the next words out of their mind is, I didn't learn anything. It was a waste of my time. You guys should really do this for them. That's every time. Every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And Sam is right. Sam says, compliance training is important, but it had nothing to do with training. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Compliance training has a business need. And the business need is, look, we got 40,000 employees, and we need to show this regulatory body that we train them for an hour, or we train them for 30 minutes or whatever, and we address these regulations. So as long as I can show that, then we're good.
Yep.
That's all you need to do. Why? Because if I don't, then I don't have a standing foot in the legal case, and I don't have a standing foot, being audited. So, you have to understand business needs. I mean, a lot of people get caught up with this. No, but compliance training could be so great. It should be so beautiful. It's like, I don't know. I think it's, that train already left. I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, another compliance training,
Oh yeah.
I mean, so, it doesn't get any better, right?
No, you're right. And we had a couple questions on here. What are the best resources and tools for trying to attempt good e-learning practices without deep practice and practical knowledge of of an e-learning designer? I have some ideas, but I'm sure you do too. So I'm going to piggyback off of you because you're smarter than me.
Well, I think primarily, if we talk about how to put things together, people need to think of three different things. HPT is probably the first thing they need to look at: human performance technology, right? So you can determine what training addresses, and what other solutions you can have to address performance. Once you get that down, then you can go into multimedia learning theory, or you can go into Merrill's theory of principles of good instruction, right? Because the great thing about Merrill, and I actually got to meet him earlier this year, David Merrill, is that his principles are not about theory and all that. His book is full of examples that, although he's doing it on PowerPoint, all right, they show you exactly what the point is and why it works and how it's addressed, because they've done a bunch of studies. Mayer and Merrill are the two guys that actually done a bunch of studies. I mean, they just experimented with people. Yeah, you can throw some caveats in there. You can say, well, that was just cognitive, or that was this. But that doesn't mean that you can borrow from that. That doesn't mean that you can't say, okay, that makes more sense. And I mean, some of the stuff that Mayer is doing is completely parallel with graphic design principles that you learn. You go to blogs or whatever. So, such as hierarchy, such as, dual coding and all that. So, yeah, definitely you got to get those down so you can actually then say, okay, now I got a tool. Now I can make it in a tool. I can apply this to a tool.
You're dead on. From my end, if I were looking at principles, Merrill's material is fantastic. I mean, he's had that out for years, and it's influenced us tremendously. If I were looking at today, what could I do for a principle if I didn't know squat about instructional design? I'm going to be honest with you. What I find is communication majors make great instructional designers. And here's why. Communication and people that were in video, not necessarily video production, but maybe like wanted to be a director or a screenwriter, because of something that you said earlier, the actual story and the story behind what happens. So the first thing that I would say is, stop with the objectives at the beginning. Start with some type of mystery, or start with thinking of it as the beginning of a trailer. And I'm not talking something in the courtyard. I'm talking something that is going to compel you. Because if you look at trailers of movies, they compel you to want to go purchase a ticket to go sit there and do it. And so what we're not doing is we're expecting these human beings that go onto websites for an average of 2 seconds to sit there for 15 minutes. And we, just like you said in the format, your format is dead on. Welcome to my learning module. Click start to begin. Here is our interface. Here's the objectives that we are going to be learning. Now let's get started. Click next. Right. And so, in my opinion, for somebody that doesn't have an instructional design experience, why don't you start with, it's a dark and gloomy Saturday morning. And I have, yeah, dun, dun, dun. I love it.
Yeah, I started many courses that way. I started a course with a After Effects composition that I put together. So like a trailer, it's like,
yeah.
And that's more to like catch your visual attention, but the content is pretty much breaking down into the why of things, right? It's like, so if you were doing compliance, imagine you started compliance with like, Bob is an idiot.
Bob.
He sold company assets for this, and now he's in jail,
So we
or
took
whatever.
a
But,
swing
I mean,
line.
you're like, you don't have to tell honest people to be honest, but you just want to make sure, again, compliance training, as Sam mentioned, it's not for that. It's for legality, it's for liability. So, but yeah, it's what you're saying is like, you have to address this as an experience that is not just a fun thing, a game thing. You have to have some kind of scientific piece on it. And I love the term instructional designer, although it never caught on, right? And it has been sort of abused by the job industry.
Abuse is an understatement.
Yeah,
Guantanamo Bay.
But if you put like, if you grab a part and you put the two words as big as you can in the slide and you say instructional designer, it's almost like you see a nice clash of science and art in converging in the middle. And that's how I like to look at it. There's the designer piece where you are, when you are applying some artistic, creative things. And then there's the instructional piece, which is completely based on the whole scientific piece of science, whether you go in the cognitive and the behavioral, whatever. But you got to have that piece of science, because that's how you want to know, okay, here's where we started. We did this. Did it make anything happen? Did it change anything? Otherwise, you're just putting content out there.
Right. You quantify the actual experience. And Benjamin made a comment that fun is a key to all training. I completely agree. I think one of the things that I have said in other lectures is that we live in the age of instant gratification. So I made a comment earlier, you look at a website for 2 seconds. Alex's approach is an excellent approach, because if you can get them to stay on the slide, on this active window for that long. I love everyone in the chat right now, but I can guarantee you, I could bet each one of you $100 you got at least 3 tabs open right now. You've clicked over to there's 3 tabs within the last 20 seconds. Okay, then 4, boom, nailed it. And it's human psychology. We are bombarded by media and material at all times. Right. I am too. And so what happens is, dang, Benjamin, you got a fast computer. So what he has 53 tabs for anybody that's on the podcast. He's got 53 tabs open Chrome. There goes all of his resources. So what I'm stating is we're always fighting for that attention, and we're not taking into consideration, because we're like, well, you have to take this training, so we don't care if you're not really paying attention. That's not necessarily the case, because if they have to take the training, it's much like what we were talking about before with your teenager. They have to take this. Well, you know how much effort you're going to get in my son that has to take out the trash. You know what that looks like? That is a half-assed trash job. And so you're going to get half-assed retention on that. And so finding ways, like you said, to spark their interest, finding ways to make it attention grabbing right at the beginning, and like we talked about before, getting them in and getting them out quickly, because we love VR, and VR and AR are working really well for some of our clients out in the field. But if they Agile, but aka
Jonathan is to write. You need to write that book. AKA half-ass.
It works. It works really well. Like AR and VR works really well out in the field. But you're right, for the masses of delivering 10,000 people this one experience, it's not really feasible at this current moment. So
you're breaking down some things there that are great. I would say, look, fun is fun, but fun is not for everybody. So fun is a subjective thing, right? So you can make I know J Rock over here, he makes some awesome games. He makes some great designs on e-learning and stuff like that, but that's not for everybody. So if you put it out there, that's one great thing. But there's going to be always someone that's going to be hating on you. So
always,
what do you do? How do you address that? Because your job is not to, your job is not to appease your own designer ego. Your job is to take care of the people that, you're serving. Now the context varies, right? Because I only like to make videos, so you make a video. But some people don't like videos. My wife hates a video, right? So she wants to read. I love video. I don't. If I can read, I can read, but I don't really want to read. So the main thing is there's going to be some media preferences out there. There's going to be consumption preferences. That's why you got different apps. Otherwise, Facebook will be it, right? We got Twitter, we got TikTok, we got Snap, we got Insta. They all serve different purposes. So when it comes to e-learning, same situation. It's a consumption model as well. So if you're doing a course, my suggestion to you, if you're doing a course and you have a visual learning, if you're doing a course, give options, enable people's autonomy to experience however they want to appear. Yeah, you made that awesome game. Well, put that to the side, a little button. Hey, you want to play a game? Go this way. Hey, you want to read a PDF? Hey, you're boring? Read this. Whatever. Or you want to, hey, you're fun? Play this game. Hey, you're boring? Click here.
This is going in the book. That's going in the book. Somebody
there you go. There you go. But give people the option.
You're dead right.
The option to see how they need to go, man.
You're dead right. We have built another piece of this is if it takes longer for them to access it and get into it than it does for them to actually interact with it, and if you can't get them to actually access it within 5 seconds, you're failing. And what do I mean by that? Alex at the beginning said, VR, it works for, if you want to do on-field training or something that's highly specialized. But when it comes to actual e-learning, it's got to be quick. It's got to be within that 2 seconds. It's got to get them in. It's got to compel them. And even if they are like, this sucks, I love boring, it still has to show them what is in it for them. Why do they have to do this? And what is the reason? What is the benefit going to be to them for this? Even if that means, hey, by you taking this, you're going to reduce our ability to have compliance violations, which means you could help save us $3 billion this year, which means we can turn around and utilize that money for training or da 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 da. Just imagine what we could do with that if you were to learn this and help us and actually put it in the context of them. Because if you can do that, then we find that they understand the impact they'll be making by learning this.
Yeah. I'll say, I think we're almost at time here, but the last thing I'll say is, just question everything. Question your own, desires up front. So like, if you're thinking, well, it has to be fun to be effective, think about what that is.
Mm-hmm.
What is fun? Because, I love chess. I like playing chess, but half of the people may look at that and that's boring. Boring game. But since I know the moves, I know the game, I know the piece of it, I love it. It's fun for me, but that may not be fun for other people. So consider all those things around the front. And then, I'll say that it's going to be a hard challenge anyway if you're trying to do something that is company-wide, because there are way too many likes and things to do. So try to be as targeted as possible when you do develop your learning.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much. Amazing information. I hope that we can actually do a round 2 of this, because I think you and I have a lot more that we could share. Where are you going to be next? What are you going to be doing? Where, after the new year, where are you heading? Where will everybody be able to see you?
Man, so, you can always see me on LinkedIn. Check me out pretty much in every social media. I'm Style Learn. So the word style and learn together. And stylelearn.com is my site. Actually, I have a bit of a plug, which is I'm releasing an online course academy, sort of like a learning path that is going to help people that want to transition from not being an e-learning developer, instructional designer, to getting a job. So it's a different angle. So it's more.
No, that's fantastic.
It's covering all the basics, like how to get your portfolio set up, how to get learn skills in a specific tool or storyline or PowerPoint, and also how to format your resume and answer questions and things like that in interviews. So
wow,
it's really inspired of the help that I've been doing for a lot of people. So I figure out now we need to help more people at one point. So
That's fantastic. I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of people that are definitely will be looking at that. And I can also tell you from a university standpoint, you get that up and running, send it. I'll send it over to my boss and say, hey, send this to the instructional design department, because we have an
Cool.
ID department. They just won't let me go play in it.
Really want to thank you guys for this opportunity. It's been awesome. Love seeing a lot of people that I already know, and those that follow me and that I get to know also on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much. It's been a wealth of knowledge. And to everybody, thank you again. Everyone have a happy holiday season.
Yeah.
And until the new year, stay creative.
All right. See you guys.